On behalf of the entire Witkin family and the extended Witkin family, I want to thank all of you for showing such great kavod to my father-in-law by your attendance here tonight. We always knew that he touched many lives, but when we see it in person, it really brings a tremendous nachama to all of us. And we really greatly appreciate it. My father-in-law saved everything. He threw out nothing. And for years, ever since I've been in the family, which is close to 25 years, we've made fun of him for that. Always joked with him. He wouldn't throw out anything. And a couple of weeks ago, I actually said to my children that what we made fun of him, we're so lucky he did, because he really chronicled his life. And we're able to see everything of his life, because he threw nothing out. About a month ago, during Shiva,
there's a gray Nissan with Maryland plates in the far parking lot. A gray Nissan, and the lights are on. Gray Nissan with Maryland plates.
About a month ago, during Shiva, we had opportunity to go through many of the items that he had, and we got nostalgic. My brother-in-law showed me a closet, and in the closet were stacks of notebooks. And I started going through the notebooks, and just if you can take my father-in-law saving everything and put it into the meticulous way he kept everything, he had dozens of notebooks with hundreds and hundreds of shiurim that dated back from when he was in his Rebbe, the Rav, Rabbi Yoshe Soloveitchik's shiur, back in the 1950s, and pretty much every yahrzeit shiur that seemed to be ever given by the Rav, Aaron Soloveitchik, starting from around 1960. Meticulous notes. So when determining what we were going to do tonight, we thought it could only be a fitting tribute to my father-in-law, who went to all those yahrzeit shiurim, to actually have a shiur, or at least some form of a shiur, L'ilui Nishmasa. When I was debating what topic I should pick, the one thing that I wanted to do is make sure that it's a topic that can really be associated with my father-in-law. And there are many things that could be associated with him. One of them that came to mind is right here, Kriyas HaTorah, Pidyon Shvuyim, Eretz Yisrael, Ahavas Yisrael, Lo Samod Adam Re'echa. There were so many topics I could come up with. My father-in-law was born on May 14th, a date about a dozen years later that was destined to become a very famous date for the Jewish people, with the establishment of the State of Israel on that day. His association to Israel came literally from birth. His Hebrew birthday is Chaf Beis Iyar, which means that the day of his bris was one day after what would many years later become Yom Yerushalayim. Yerushalayim Ir HaKodesh, Yerushalayim, the city that he loved so dearly, Yerushalayim that eventually became his home, and Yerushalayim that is now his resting place. So what is Yerushalayim? So we know in the Megillah, we've celebrated a couple of weeks ago, we celebrated Purim. So Purim, we know, has 2 days of Yom Tov. The first day of Yom Tov of Purim is Yud Dalet Adar. Yud Dalet Adar is the Yom Tov for Purim and Orei HaPrazos. Then there's another day which we call Shushan Purim on Tesvav Adar. Shushan Purim is a Yom Tov that we celebrate for Purim only for cities that are walled and were walled at the time of Yoshua ben Nun. Except for one city. Well, there are many cities that are not walled at the time of Yoshua ben Nun, but maybe included because of their like Shushan. But there's one city that we really apply the halachos of Mukaf Choma to when it comes to Purim, and that's Yerushalayim. In fact, in Eretz Yisrael, they don't refer to it as Shushan Purim, it's called Purim Yerushalayim. Because Yerushalayim is considered a walled city. And a walled city has various halachos that apply to it. In fact, those that are doing the Daf Yomi know that about a week ago, on Daf Pei Beis in Bava Kama, the Gemara says that there are 10 things about Yerushalayim. One thing about it, one of the first one mentioned, is Ein Batim Muchlad Bo, that the halachos of Batei Arei Choma do not apply to Yerushalayim. We know when it comes to Eretz Yisrael in general, there are certain laws that apply to transactions regarding real estate. Those transactions in Eretz Yisrael in the time of the Beis Hamikdash are never really sales. They're basically leases. You can't really sell property in Yerushalayim. You can lease it, and eventually it comes back by Yovel or through redemption. Batei Arei Choma, homes in walled cities, have different rules, different halachos. So Yerushalayim should be a Batei Arei Choma. It should be one of those walled cities. We just said it's one of the ones that read the Megillah on Shushan Border. Why? Because it's a near home. If it's a near home, it has different rules, so the Gemara has to tell us something special about Yerushalayim. Even though it's really a near home, it's a walled city, it still doesn't have the rules of a walled city that apply to it. But nonetheless, Yerushalayim is a near home. But we have a problem. There's a Gemara in Bava Basra that says, Amar Rabbi Chanina Bar Papa. Rabbi Chanina Bar Papa says the following: Bikesh HaKadosh Baruch Hu l'seises Yerushalayim b'midah. God wanted to give measurements to Yerushalayim. He wanted to give it a length and a width. Yerushalayim has to have a specific distance. Shenemar, like the pasuk says, V'omer ono ato olech, said to the Malach, where are you going? Vermi elai lamodis Yerushalayim. I'm going to measure Yerushalayim. Kama rochba, kama orcha, how long it is, how wide it is. That's what I'm doing. I'm going to measure Yerushalayim. So Amar Malachei Ashoris L'fnei HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Malachim come and say before God, Ribbono Shalom, Master of the world, Harbei Krochim Barasa B'Olam Echad. You built many cities in your world. Shalomos Olam, they all belong to the God. V'lo nasata midas orkon midas rochlon. All those great cities that are created throughout the world, He didn't say they have to be this wide or this long. He didn't give any distance to them. However, wherever people built homes, that's how big the city was. You didn't give anything different. Yerushalayim, sheshimcha b'socha. Yerushalayim, that your name dwells in. Umikdashcha b'socha, your Beis Hamikdash dwells in it. V'tzadikim b'socha, the tzadikim are in it. Atanosim ba'amida, you're going to give a measurement to. All the other cities in the world can go as far and wide as they want, and Yerushalayim has to stay within confines that are measured. Miyad, immediately, Vayomer Lov, he said to the Malach, Rutz daber lanar alaz lemor, go say to the nar, Prazos teshev Yerushalayim, merov adom ve'imav socha. Yerushalayim should be prazos, spread out. What's the word we use on Purim? What's the word we use to say what Yerushalayim is not? We specifically say, the Arei HaPrazos, they're the ones that read on Yudal. Yerushalayim is not an Arei Prazos, and therefore they read it on Tesvav. And here it specifically says, the word of Yerushalayim. Yerushalayim is an Ir Prazos, it's spread out. So which one is it? Is it a walled city in confines, or is it one of the Arei Prazos, spread out? There's the Psukim in Shemini that talk about the holiness of Yerushalayim. In one pasuk, the holiness is referred to as a makom. You have to eat certain karbanos in a makom kadosh. And another pasuk it says you have to eat in a makom tahor. It refers to parts of Yerushalayim. Once is a makom kadosh, a holy place. Once is a makom tahor, a pure place. What's the difference? There's a halachic difference. The Kodshei Kodshim can only be eaten in a Makom Kodesh. Kodshei Kalim, those of lesser Kedusha, can be eaten in a Makom Torah. Further, in more areas in Yerushalayim, not restricted to the Azor. So Yerushalayim, therefore, has both aspects to it. It has the aspect of a Makom Kadosh, and it has the aspect of a Makom Torah. My Rebbe in Rosh Hashiva, Rav Aaron Lichtenstein, explains that there really is something distinctly different about a Makom Kadosh and a Makom Torah. You know what the difference is? Kedusha, by definition, cannot coexist with chol. Kedusha, by definition, is the absence of chol. Holiness is the absence of mundane. They can't coexist. Tara is dafka with tumah. The para aduma is mitaras hatmeim and mitamias hatahorim. They go hand in hand. Tara has to be with tumah. The Gemara tells us that a goy cannot become tamei. Why can a goy not become tamei? So the Gemara says, because there's no tara for a goy. If there's no tara, there's no tumah. They have to go together. So what are we saying now? Yerushalayim is a makom kadosh. It's a place of holiness. It's a place that can't have any chulin. It can't coexist with anything mundane, anything other than holy. But it's also a place of tara. Tara, by definition, has to exist with something that's tumah. Which one is it? Is it makom kadosh of holiness, absent anything that is normal in everyday life? Or is it makom tara, which also has tumah, coexisting with it? What is Yerushalayim? Parak Kuf Chav Beis in Tehillim starts off telling us, Shir Amal David Samachti Ba'omrim Li Beis Hashem Nelech. I'm happy that I'm going to the house of Hashem. Omdos Hayu Ragleinu, our feet are standing B'Sharayach Yerushalayim. In your gates, Yerushalayim. So what is Yerushalayim? It's the place of Beis Hashem, the holiness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And the pasuk explains it. Yerushalayim Abnu Yakir Shechu B'Leich Tov. It connects everybody. Sheshamalu Shvatim Shiftei Kaidus L'Yisrael Odos L'Shem Hashem. We go there to thank God. It's a place of holiness. It's a place of Beis Hashem. And then the pasuk goes on. Kishama Yashvu Kisos L'Mishpat. There you're going to see the kisei, the thrones of judgment. Kisos L'Beis David. The parak starts off telling us it's Beis Hashem, the house of God. And then it tells us it's Beis David. You know what Beis Hashem is? Beis Hashem is the house of God. Beis Hashem is where the Shekhinah is. Beis Hashem is where there's Kodshim brought. Beis Hashem is pure holiness. Beis David, the seat of government, politics, foreign policy, domestic policy, healthcare, employment. That's what Beis David is. Beis David is the political arm of the people. So what is Yerushalayim? On the one hand, Yerushalayim is Beis Hashem. It's a house purely of spirituality, of God. On the other hand, Beis David, it's the house of the government. It's the house where the most mundane of society lives. What happens in Beis Hashem? In Beis Hashem, we're not allowed to even sit. You go into the Azara, you're not even allowed to sit unless you're the Melech. No one's even allowed to sit, let alone sleep. In Yerushalayim, we sit, we sleep, we work, we travel, we talk, we gossip, we do different things in Yerushalayim itself. Which one is it, Beis Hashem or is it Beis David? What is Yerushalayim? So perhaps we can understand what Yerushalayim actually is through understanding various halachos that apply to us in reference to Yerushalayim. So there's Gemara in Rosh Hashanah. The Mishnah in Rosh Hashanah tells us that in the beginning, Barishona, the lulav was taken all 7 days in the Beis HaMikdash, and only 1 day in the Medina, only the first day in the Medina. Machlok is what Medina means, Machlok is Rishonim, whether that's the Beis HaMikdash or Yerushalayim itself. Along comes Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, Mishachar Beis HaMikdash, when the Beis HaMikdash is destroyed. Hiskin Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai comes and makes various takanos. One of them is that we should start taking the lulav for 7 days everywhere. That's the takon of Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. Now, we may think that the Rabbanan can do anything they want whenever they want, but we know that in actuality, they have to have a basis for what they do. So the Gemara immediately asks, Manolan, where does Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai get the right to make a takana zecher lemikdash, the Gemara says? Where do you know that you can actually make a takana zecher lemikdash? You can't just do it on your own. Where do you know you can do that from? So Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai brings a pasuk The Gemara brings a pasuk from Yirmiyahu that tells us that God will bring refuah, God will cure us, because the Goyim are going to say that we were cast aside, and Sion he v'dorei shein lo. The Gemara says, the pasuk says, Sion he, it's Zion, it's Sion, v'dorei shein lo, and there's no one who seeks it out. The Gemara then says, Meklal the boy Drisha. From here we know that Yerushalayim needs Drisha. It needs to be sought out. What's boy Drisha mean? So many years ago, in a shul, I heard a shir from Rabbi Pelkowitz, she live and be well, that there's a distinction between Zeichel HaMikdash and Zeichel HaChurban. Now there are many distinctions between them, and we have halachic distinctions between them. But there's one distinction that really is prominent between Zeichel HaChurban and Zeichel HaMikdash. Most things that are Zeichel HaChurban are things we don't do. Things we just leave. We don't do anything. You build a house, don't finish it. Leave a little spot empty. Zeichel HaChurban. You set your table, leave a spot empty. Leave one setting empty. Why? Zeichel HaChurban. That's a Zeichel HaChurban. Zeichel HaChurban is basically not doing something. It's a Shev al Taseh. That's what Zeichel HaChurban is. Just don't do it. Most of them. Just don't do it. Shev al Taseh. Zeichel HaMikdash is a kum v'aseh. Zeichel HaMikdash is to get up and actually do something. Zeichel HaMikdash is take the lulav for 7 days, not just one. Below the shofar on Rosh Hashanah, everywhere there's a bezdin, even when it falls out on Shabbos. Take matzah, take morah, put it together. Zeichel HaMikdash kehilel. We have to do something positive. There's a kum v'aseh when it comes to Zeichel HaMikdash. Zeichel HaChurban is just Shev al Taseh. That's an important part of life. Is Shev al Taseh. What is a zecher? A zecher is a memory. Zecher is what we don't have to do anything to remember. And it's something that happened to us in the past. Something that already occurred. Shev al Taseh. A Jew doesn't have to be reminded of things, especially bad things. A Jew doesn't have to be reminded. Right? My father was a gabbai in this shul for many years. No one had to be reminded when they didn't get a kippur. Everyone remembers when they don't get a kippur. That's Zecher. Everyone remembers something bad. There's a story, there's a book, I don't remember which one, by Leon Uris. And in this story he has two characters. And it's the end of the war, and there are two Nazi characters, Nazi officers. And at the end of the war, one of the officers is burning everything in sight, every paper in sight. And the other officer says to him, "What are you doing? You're burning everything for." He says, "I'm going to burn it all. There'll be no evidence. Eventually, people will forget about it." So the other officer says to him, he says, in Leon Uris' word, he says, "These are people that during the hottest time of the year fast for a temple that was destroyed 2,000 years ago. You think they're going to forget this? They don't forget. We don't forget. Zeicha, remembering, especially Zeicha al-Churban, Shev al Taseh, that comes easy to us. The key to the remembering is making sure it becomes part and parcel of who we are. The Zeicher has to be our essence, not just something that comes about, we work at it. Shev al Taseh, we don't have to do anything. It just naturally comes. My wife and I are, Bezrat Hashem, going to be making a bas mitzvah right after this. Do you think we're going to have to try to remember my father-in-law is not there? Do you think we're going to have to work at remembering what he spoke about at my son's bar mitzvah a few years ago? Or how we danced at my daughter's bas mitzvah a few years before that? We won't have to try. It'll come flooding back to us. Ba'al korchenu. We're not going to have a choice. It's the essence of who we are. That's what Shev al Taseh B'Zchira is. It's making it part and parcel of who we are. That's the Zeicher l'Churban that we're talking about. The Zeicher l'Churban is a Shev al Taseh. Im Eshkachechi Yerushalayim Tishkachi Mini is a Shev al Taseh. What's Shev al Taseh? How are we going to sing? I can't do anything. I just have to sit and not do anything. That will bring the memories of Yerushalayim back to my heart and back to my mind. That's Zeicher l'Churban. That's the essence of Zechira. that we have to have in Yerushalayim. It has to become part and parcel of who we are. When we're sitting at a wedding, it should be that we have to work to get something to remember Yerushalayim. Imlo Ale as Yerushalayim Alosim Chasi should be a natural part of who we are. That's the Sheva Al Taseh, part of Zechira, of remembering. But there's another part of the memory. That part of the memory is not the Zecher HaMikdash. That's not Doresh Ein Lo. That's not Miklal Deboy Drisha. That's not teaching us that we have to seek it out. That's Sheva Al Taseh. The requirement of Yerushalayim, the requirement of Zecher HaMikdash is Kum V'aseh. It's what can we do for Yerushalayim. If the Zechira is what it did for us, of remembering Beis Hashem Neilech, remembering all the Kedusha that came to us, that's the Zechira of Zecher L'Churban, of Sheva Al Taseh. But there's a second requirement, Kum V'aseh. We have to get up and do something. We have to have a Zecher HaMikdash. That's what Drisha is. Drisha is seeking something out. Not just for us, but for future generations. It's how do we do it for the next generation? Miklei Yoker explains that when Moshe Rabbeinu assigned 3 cities to be Orei Miklat, the greatness of Moshe Rabbeinu was that he knew there are going to be 3 more. But it doesn't matter. I have to do something for the children. What am I doing for the children? What am I doing for the next generation? The first 3 Orei Miklat had no effect until the second 3 Orei Miklat came into being. The first 3 were nothing until the second 3 came into being. Moshe Rabbeinu was teaching the next generation, even if we see nothing from it, even if it seems like it bears no fruit, do it anyway. Zecher HaMikdash, because the next generation is going to need it. The next generation, we have to do a Zechira for the next generation. Zochores asher aso lecha Amalek. Baderach b'tzeichem miMitzrayim. We have to do the memory. Why? It's us. It happened to us. We came out of Mitzrayim. It happened to us. But what's going to happen? When God gives you rest, from everyone around you, then what's going to happen? Now you remember. Of course you remember. Amalek attacked. We don't remember when things bad happen to us. But what's going to happen to our children? What's going to happen? They're not attacked. They're living in a comfortable country. They're happy. Everything's good for them. What's going to happen to them? So lo tishkach. Make sure you don't forget. Make sure there's a schira, and make sure there's lo tishkach. There are 2 mitzvahs. The mitzvah has to be a sheva al taseh, of remembering, and the kum v'aseh, of doing something about it. That's the other part of schira. The Gemara in Rosh Hashanah is telling us michlal deboy drisha, that when it comes to Yerushalayim, just remembering sheva al taseh, very important. Making it part and parcel of who we are is very important. But there's a second aspect. The second aspect of Zechira is Kum V'aseh. Do something. We have to do something about it. We have to be Doresh Yerushalayim. If these are the 2 parts of Zechira of Yerushalayim, if these are the 2 aspects of it, then perhaps we can answer the questions that we had before. What is Yerushalayim? Yerushalayim is a Makom Kadosh. Yerushalayim has the holiness of the Beis Hashem. Yerushalayim is a place where it's your mikdash is there, like the Gemara tells us above the Basra. Your mikdash is there, the Shechina is there. It's a Makom Kadosh. It has pure holiness. And what do we have to do for the Makom Kadosh? What do we have to do for the Beis Hashem? We have to build a wall around it. We have to make it Norei Chomo. We have to protect that Kedusha in every way we can possibly protect that Kedusha. In everything we can do, we have to make sure for ourselves that Yerushalayim gives us all the Kedusha that it can. All the Kedusha that it has. What did we do to get that Kedusha? Sheva al Taseh. Kitchel Shata, Kitchel Asilovo. The Kedusha comes from way back. We didn't do anything for it. We walk into Yerushalayim, it's a Makom Kadosh. If someone goes to the Kotel, a Makom Kadosh. Those who go up to the Har Bayis, Makom Kadosh. We didn't have to do anything for it. It comes naturally. Sheva al Taseh. What do we have to do? We have to protect it. We have to build a wall around that Beis Hashem. We have to make sure that that Kedusha is so entrenched within us. It's so embedded in our being that that Kedusha then becomes part and parcel of who we are. where it cannot be threatened any longer. But once that happens, we can't stop there. That's just a Sheval Taseh part. There has to be the Kupaseh. If we just have the Makom Kadosh of Yerushalayim, where all we're concerned about is the spirituality of it, then all those people that have to take care of Am Yisrael, all the people that have to take care of everything that's Jewish, it's everything that's us, that's even our physical lives, are going to be ignored. Yerushalayim has to be that place where it's a Makom Kadosh, where it touches our soul. Not just our physical being, but it touches our soul. My Rosh Yeshiva, Rav Amital tells a story that when he was, when he went through the Holocaust and then he went to Eretz Yisrael, and he fought in the early days of the Medina, he fought alongside a very close friend of his who was as Chiloni as they come. Treif on Yom Kippur, he would eat. The man became a professor later on. Many years later, after the 6-Day War, Rav Amital calls him up and he says to him, "Let me ask you a question. What touched you during the 6-Day War? When you heard on the news that they captured Shalom HaSheikh, or when you heard on the news Har HaBayit B'Yadeinu?" And the man said, "Of course, Har HaBayit B'Yadeinu. It touches every Jew." I say this to there's an Israeli girl in work who's not from it all. And I say when she unfortunately dates a Sheikhs, I say, "Hu yodei Yerushalayim. Ulai hu makir Yerushalayim. Aval hu lo margish Yerushalayim." We feel Yerushalayim. That's the Kedusha aspect of Yerushalayim. It has to touch our soul. Sheval Taseh, naturally. No matter how far away the Jew is, Yerushalayim touches his soul. But then we have to look and say, but what do we have to do? What about the Tumah that's in Yerushalayim? What about the non-Makom Kadosh that's in Yerushalayim? What about the Beis David that's in Yerushalayim? What about the politics that have to go on? The things that have to be taken care of? The captives that have to be redeemed? The health care that has to be done? The employment that has to be taken care of? The streets that have to be cleaned? Can we just say, no, that's not what Yerushalayim's about? Can we just say Yerushalayim is just about the Kedusha? No, that's not what Yerushalayim is. It's Beis David also. Yerushalayim is also the Makom Tahor, which sits right next to the Makom Tameh. Alongside it, being Mitayer Es HaTmei. The only way Tara comes is when it battles Tumah and overcomes it. So if that's the case, then Yerushalayim has to be multiple things. It has to be the Beis Hashem, and it has to be the Beis David. It has to be the Makom Kadosh, and it has to be the Makom Tahor. And if that's the case, then what do we have to do with Yerushalayim? The first thing we have to do is we have to build a wall around it. We have to recognize that we have to protect that Kedusha, so that it's so ingrained in us that it's not threatened. And then we have to take all that Kedusha, and all that Tahor, and Prozos. It has to be spread out. It can't be confined to the walls of Yerushalayim. It has to be spread out amongst all Jews wherever they live. It has to be spread out even amongst the Goyim, so that Yerushalayim can truly become the Ora Shalom. That it can become the place that actually gives off everything that it possibly can. So that it's a Makom Kadosh and a Makom Tahor. That everything in the world that is Tameh can be purified through the light of Yerushalayim. So that it can be the Ora Shalom through which the entire world can benefit from that light and see. And we should all be Zocheh. We should all be Zocheh to see alive and well. We should all be Zocheh to see that Yerushalayim that we all love, that we all go to. And we should all be able to see that Yerushalayim. Sason v'simcha yimatzeh ba todah v'kol zimra.
Thank you, Joel, for doing such a beautiful shiur. A topic that, as most of you know, is so near and dear to my father. And I'm sorry about a topic that is so near and dear to my father, and sitting listening, as Joel and Elaine would agree, amongst all of us, someone who would so appreciate hearing this Torah would be my father. As both my husband Abba and Joel can attest to firsthand, my father's love for his immediate family was probably only superseded by his love for his son and daughter-in-laws. They were certainly embraced from day one when they came into the family, and it has been truly an exceptional experience to see my father's sons and daughter-in-laws being with us during this very personal loss. We'll be hearing soon as well from Abba. The photo of Pelkovitz and the White Shul administration. I'm going to start off with how my father always started off any speech that I've heard him say whether it was at a Sheva Brachot or at somebody's house, at a bris, a lot of smachot, thank God we've had, to always be Patech L'Chavod Asanya. And I just want to personally thank Rizal Tuvia, who's been so helpful, just arranging all of this evening for us to have this Azkara for my father and for the White Shul. This has been our father's Asanya for over 40 years, up until 9 months ago. Aside from Yerushalayim on Har Menuchot, these walls in this community is probably one of the proper places to have an Azkara for our wonderful father, fantastic father-in-law, your brother, brother-in-law, uncle, devoted friend, and beloved congregant. Although the actual shloshim was last Tuesday in Yerushalayim, it seemed only proper to have an Azkara family and friends in my parents' community. As I stand here tonight, I think I started to say, I believe to less, my mind instantly floods with memories, close to 40 years. Abba reminded me almost 39 years ago, in this Beit Knesset, my father named me, after his father, Zalman Tzvi, from Zahavat Sibia, I guess not knowing they were going to have a Zalman Tzvi. And almost 1 year ago, Abba stood in this Beit Knesset with my father on Shabbat Erev Pesach to name our daughter, Sarah Leah. Sarah was Abba's grandmother, and Leah was my father's mother, whom my father tragically never knew. The first memory that I can think of when I walk in here is actually right here, this bima, where I can see my father standing up serving as the impeccable Baal Koreh. He would be able to recall the mistakes he made over the 40 years in this community. As we all know, we're not too many. Reading the Megillah so clearly and flawlessly, and being whisked away to the Beit Midrash for the minyanim there as well as being called for an emergency in the teen or the 9 o'clock minyan, which, as my father said, meant someone obviously forgot to prepare or just didn't show up to shul. And I guess Hilly was not around to help out. My father was always so modest, always spending time preparing Friday night, despite the fact that it was probably the 300th time or more that he had gone over the Parsha. How I loved hearing his melodic voice of practicing the lady on Friday night. In addition, I look around and I see also so many people who have had children who were taught by my father. And I know my father was so proud of hearing them learn, as if he was their own father. And I'm sure many of the parents are indebted to my father as well, because as my dad said, I guess no one else wanted to teach this kid. That's why they called me. However, my dad never gave up on the students. Whether they were going to read one aliyah, whether they were going to read a double parsha. What was important was as long as they read Kriyat Torah correctly and properly. And subsequently, the kids would feel good about themselves, which my father always enjoyed seeing. After looking here at the bima, I look around the bima, and I'm immediately brought back to seeing all 6 Wiccan children pulling at my father to be on his shoulder for Simchat Torah. Of course, true to my dad's motto of equal opportunity for all his children, we all got special time to dance with him. Of course, Jerry Witkin had to be the last one dancing, along with Joel Kaplan, Sidney, Shimmy, Rabbi Pelkovitz, Hilly, Rabbi Hef, just to name a few. I guess my dad had difficulty parting with one of his true loves and passions, the Torah. Incidentally, as a tribute to our father, we did, amongst the immediate and the extended family, we finished learning all 52 parshiot in the Torah for tonight, Azkara. There was a Siyum Mishnayot in Israel that Elaine was there for, and they finished up Mishnayot there, but we thought it would also be a great mark of respect for our father, the Baal Koreh par excellence. It was especially beautiful because so many of the grandchildren ran to sign up, including the 6-year-old Nathaniel Witkin and 9-year-old Ariella Witkin, Maria Wasserman, and Tamima Hef all signed up to learn the Parshiot. How Zadie would have continued to be so proud of them. I learned my dad's bar mitzvah parsha, Bahar B'Chukotai, which Joel actually reminded me of the Denali for his bar mitzvah in his shul. I'm sure they're kicking themselves now, any listeners. I now go from this bima to what was truly my dad's makom kavua, where Hilly is sitting now. Certainly my dad's friendships from that back bench were from well over 40 years ago, along with his children who sat either on the bench or on the radiator behind the bench. I look and see Hilly, Les, Mike, Heshi, Mel, and others who were permanent fixtures on that bench for all those years. It could be there was schmoozing going on there. However, this was not tolerated for the Witkin children. It was truly a place of chinuch that has shaped our own lives and children's lives today. It was such a thrill going with my dad to shul. However, we grew up with my dad's fast-paced walk, which I'm sure many of you recognize. Our little feet barely touched the ground when walking to shul with him, but this was a small price to pay for getting to walk and be in shul with Daddy. Once we got to shul, there were really only 2 choices for Shabbat morning. You either sat in shul, davened, did not utter a sound, since this is a makom tefillah, or you stayed home. There was no choice of running around like wilde chayes, as my father liked to say, in shul. End of story. We're so thankful to our father for instilling this in us because we hold it as an important part of any Beit Knesset. It is a makom tefillah and Torah, period. Through this, my dad instilled such a love of shul, Torah, kavod makom tefillah, and kavod harav to his children and subsequently to his grandchildren. I remember vividly clinging to my dad's knees just to be able to say Kedusha with him. How my heart aches thinking that my dad was only able to go to shul twice in Yerushalayim since he made Aliyah. He pushed himself to sit in shul at Phyllis's house in Rosh Hashanah for Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, despite the fact that I kept coming out to Abba and telling him to bring my father outside of shul. He felt so lousy, but he would not hear of not going to shul, and of course, not being there on time, which meant 15 minutes early, Witkin time. And now I look around at away from my dad's physical makom kavua, to those of you sitting here tonight, my parents' family, lifelong community and friends whom we loved so much. How we loved talking passionately with all of you, and everything from the Rav's Torah, which was such a treat to hear from his mouth, as Joel saw from those notebooks. Any good Dvar Torah, the Dodgers, which who else could be so devoted calling them the Brooklyn Dodgers after even I know they've been out of Brooklyn for so many years. And especially Pollard and Eretz Yisrael. These really were his passions, Am Yisrael, Torat Yisrael, Be'eretz Yisrael. However, you all know that for my dad, the schmoozer, any topic was fair game, as his knowledge extended far beyond. As Abba began to realize, he stopped waiting for him Friday nights when they walked home from shul. Abba would come back to the house and just say, "Your father is talking to every last person in shul. I just can't wait for him anymore." And to which my father came back and was perfectly happy as long as Abba wasn't insulted and no one was insulted. He just had to make sure the maintenance guy was cleaning up okay and locking the shul. My father's underlying theme was always maintaining kavod habriyot. A lot of you here were victims of my dad's passionate discussions. But as you also know, he never made it a personal attack on a person. He simply felt we must respect each other, but certainly stand up and be passionate about what we believe in, even if you are a daf yachid. I just never thought that after 40 years plus of passion, especially about Eretz Yisrael, we would bury our father in Yerushalayim, 8 months to the day that he stepped off the El Al flight as an Oleh Chadash. My parents landed June 23rd, and we buried our father on February 23rd. However, what's a little bit of consolation is, I think, what our brother-in-law Shmuel said at the Levaya, that what Moshe Rabbeinu wouldn't have given to have 8 months in Eretz Yisrael. True, my father did suffer during those 8 months, but before he made Aliyah, he said to me, if he doesn't go now, he doesn't know if he'll ever get there. How he wanted to spend time with his other grandchildren, his 19 grandchildren, his 19 Israeli grandchildren, and 4 children and spouses. For 8 months, when he was awake, he was never alone, between phone calls and visits. We were always trying to keep his spirits up. At the Shloshim, I wrote a letter which Lisa read at my father's kever in Yerushalayim, thanking my father for affording us such an opportunity of kibbud av. From the time my father was sedated and put on a respirator because of pneumonia on January 26th, we were all with him 24/7 in the hospital. Elaine, my daughter and I had come to Israel. My mother, the children, in-laws, and grandchildren were at the hospital round the clock. We always called for coming or leaving the hospital just to make sure that someone else was physically there before we left, so my father shouldn't be alone. And hopefully wake up when one of us were there. Whether it was Avi taking a bus at 10 o'clock from Aleichem to the hospital after a full day of work, Zalman coming also for a full day, especially after leaving his house with a newborn, Phyllis and Lisa driving back and forth to Hadassah Ein Karim, as well as having quarters in their house for my parents' extended stays, and Elaine and I joining the rotations when we came to Israel. My father would probably be upset if I was telling you all this, but I'm saying this not to pat ourselves on the back. Although my siblings are truly an inspiration to me. Whatever needed to be done was done, no questions asked. This is all really a testimony to my father and my mother for what they taught us. Someone, certainly a parent, needs help. You just do what you can. You don't talk about it, you just do it. My mother, in her right, is truly an amazing person, how she went about doing everything for my father, no matter the time, the language, truly an Eshet Chayil. And she now knows what that means in the Hebrew. My father so enjoyed the phone calls he received from all of you. When I was in Israel with him, I saw that he felt lousy, not being able to talk, but he forced himself to the phone. Inevitably, at the end of the conversation, he always looked better. Your friendship, love, support, and maintaining connection with my father really did make him feel better. So we personally want to thank you for truly contributing to my dad's quality of life. His face glowed when I told him that someone from the States called and he had been resting on me, unable to come to the phone, and that people all over were davening and rooting for him. Despite when I would hear him telling a lot of you on the phone, when you asked how he was doing, he said, okay, a little pain, a little pain. A little tired, actually, I take that back. He never said pain, a little tired. I also want to thank those of you that continue to call, even when my father couldn't speak, being sedated on a respirator, and you still called just to let us know you care and didn't forget us. Hilly, Marvin, Sydney, Joel, Morty, Heshi, Lou, Izzy are just some of the ones I spoke with. Although there were so many others, I know that spoke with my mother and my siblings just to call to say you care and you're davening for my father. What can I say? There is nothing like a chaver tov. And I know that was a chaver tov to you in his lifetime. In addition, what can I say about a priceless mishpacha, such as Aunt Debbie, Jerry and family, and Pearlie and family, and Uncle Baruch and family? How my father loved all of you. And your family smacha were such a treat, especially for a schmoozer like my dad. Whereas he would often be leaving after the bride and groom or the bar mitzvah family. Less than 2 years ago, I was open to walk with my parents down the aisle at my wedding in Yerushalayim, as well as dance and the zinka. My father got diagnosed with cancer right after my wedding, and although not feeling so great, he pushed himself to fully participate in the wedding and Sheva Brachot here in Far Rockaway. A year later, after pain and difficulties, but seemingly successful treatment, we were zochet to celebrate the birth of our daughter, Sarah Leah, 4 days before Pesach. However, the simcha was short-lived, since my father's cancer was back requiring treatment once again. My parents delayed their aliyah plans in order to make Pesach for me and for Abba, knowing that we were coming out of the hospital Erev Shabbat, it was a 3-day yontif, with a newborn. Although they had not made Pesach in 10 years, they actually gave us all their Pesach dishes because they were not planning to make Pesach again. They were planning to make Aliyah 2 months later. My parents were insistent and would not even hear of us going home from the hospital. We offered to help, all of us, the family, and Joel, myself, Abba, knowing that my father wasn't feeling great. But he refused and he said, it's okay, I'm doing things slowly, I'm taking things, a little bit at a time. However, my mother told us later that it was very difficult for my father, schlepping up and down, all those things, but he didn't want to tell us and he didn't want to make us feel bad, although it was quite obvious to us on Pesach when we sat with him. However, I try not to think about that part, because instead I think yet again we were zochet to spend my father's last Pesach with him. We were zochet to my dad's last Divrei Torah, the Pesach Seder. Although it was so difficult for my dad, he never let on, so we shouldn't feel bad. Ab and I were recently talking that it was one of the nicest Sederim we had, in my childhood home, with our healthy newborn daughter, with my parents, and my father, who we were hopeful would have a refuah shlema. I remember, as if it was yesterday, happily announcing at the table to my parents, this is the last 2-day Seder for you guys. From now on, only one, although as we know it was difficult for my dad to give in. He, I think, was also planning to maybe keep as a Zecher 2 days. Zecher let. The thought of Pesach without my father is truly unbearable and unfathomable. However, as my dad always said and always taught us through our life, HaKadosh Baruch Hu runs the show. The last time I saw and spoke to my father in person was Rosh Chodesh Cheshvan, Wednesday, October 29th, 5 months ago. As I was leaving Israel with our 6-month-old, we just spent a month with Grandma Zadie. She smiled day in, day out. Definitely good medicine for my father. The week before, Sarah Leah and I were yet again zochet to walk Dalet Amot with my father and Zadie in Yerushalayim. It was the first time in about 2 months that my father felt up to venturing outside the apartment for a walk, and he did great. When I was leaving for New York, my father and I hugged and cried, and he said to me, "Thank you for everything. You are such a terrific help to me." I quickly responded, "Dad, don't thank me. You have done everything for us." We hugged so tightly, and I said to him, "We are coming back to see you. You will get better. That is the plan." I think we both believed and hoped. I know I did. But that didn't stop the tears from flowing, since yet we also knew we're not in control of anything in life. Just as my dad attempted to thank me, I'm even uncomfortable saying that, I would just like to thank you, the extended family, whom he loved so much. The White Shul, our extended and immediate family, as well as the White Shul, Far Rockaway, and Five Towns family. My father really loved all of you, and judging by the deluge of phone calls and letters throughout this Loshim period, I know you loved my father. I wish I could name each of you individually, but I hate to leave anyone out, and you know my father enjoyed speaking to each and every one of you. At my father's Levaya 5 weeks ago, Phil Zalman and I all used a common phrase describing my father. Independently, we had written, speeches independently. Tonight, we're here with part of my dad's telco, his community, for over 40 years of his life. The sensation of standing here in Azkara1 for my father is very awkward, since his makom tefillah truly is permeated with Jerry Wittgen when I walk in, up until 9 months ago. It's hard to grasp that he's no longer with us. My dad, our dad, was truly ashir, probably one of the richest men I knew. I knew. And how he so enriched our lives. Although he collected many things, or as he would love to say, memorabilia, in our house, he wanted or needed very little in life. Aside from making sure that we, his beloved family, were secure and taken care of, he asked very little, if anything, from us. He was truly satisfied with his lot in life. My father was an ish yashar ve'emet, and the top priority was kavod habriyot. This was just something we grew up with. You did the right thing, the honest thing, and always spoke respectfully and nicely to all people. I'm going to end with what Ari and Mimi Schreier said to me during Shiva. They had called, and thank you all, by the way, everyone who called us. Gillian and I know it was so hard to get through. They said that few people come across someone like my dad in a lifetime, and how we were so lucky to have him as a dad. How true this was. Jerry Wittgen was an ish ashir, yashar nemet, a man filled with ahava v'yirah, and exemplified kavod habriot, was our father. We truly were lucky. It just seems too short of a time that we were blessed with this amazing father, confidant, and friend. We were blessed so much, I just would have loved for Sarah to know her Zadie as all the grandchildren did, and for Abba to have that special relationship with my dad as he had with all his other son and daughter-in-laws. There is and will be a palpable void in the community, in the circle of friends, and at every simcha here on in. My father was so full of life, and I, for one, don't know how to get by without him. Avi said at my father's cover last week, actually similar thought to what Joel ended with, that the void doesn't go away, but hopefully it gets filled by my father's characteristics, values, morals, and we, his family, and I believe his friends, become infused and take on these characteristics, and we actually become part of him. In this way, he's always with us. I know that this is a tall order, but perhaps there is some comfort if we can even reach a quarter of the person my father was. I only hope that my father's neshama is watching over us and will guide us through this difficult time, as he has guided us so well until now. He is so painfully missed. Abba's gonna